Hi folks, Aid here from the Man Cave Studio with our end of 2020 hobby update. Okay, so earlier in the year you saw me introduce this wee beastie. This is a resin printer. You can see if I lift the lid. If I lift the lid you can see the resin in that bath, and essentially what happens is that this bed lowers into the bath. It's not turned on at the moment, so you can see all the gunk on the outside. But essentially, a light is shone from the bottom up through a mask, which is like a TV screen. It blocks out everything where you don't want the light to hit. Where the light hits, it makes the resin go hard. So that is in essence how a resin printer works. It does it in 50,000ths of a millimetre each layer. So on a figure, 28mm scale, you're probably looking around about 1,000 layers ish. Okay, and then once it comes out of that, you clean it with not white spirits, isopropyl alcohol. Yeah, the alcohol that you don't drink. I mean, some would argue that no alcohol does you any good, but this stuff definitely won't. So had that way back in March, I think it was, when we had that, and I've been making miniatures since, but because of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, they're relatively new concepts to the UK. Basically the sale before Christmas. Amazon was selling these off. Now this is a Mega 02. This is a filament printer, and the way this works is the filament comes off the coil through the that's the gearing mechanism which forces it through, and then it heats it through the nozzle and then puts it on the plate, and then you've got an X, a Y and a Z, or as the Americans would say, XYZ axis, which helps you print stuff off. And I've been having some fun with that over Christmas, over the past couple of weeks, and you can see that I'm coming to the end of my first reel. Don't worry though folks, bought some reels in the sale too. Enables you, that is cheaper than this to run for the amount of models, but it's nowhere near the quality. Like I say, that's about 50,000ths of a millimetre. That's 0.2 of a millimetre. So a lot bigger. But good enough. You can see these kind of things will be familiar to you. These are similar to the old GW trees, made from the filament, unpainted underneath. If I hold it closely and try and get it to focus, you may even see the lines, which are 0.2 millimeters. But you know, for scenery wise, that's good enough. I probably don't tend to paint it much more than that either, folks. That'll be good enough for the games that we play and use them in. But anyway, let's show you some models I've been working on. Hopefully this will show up on the camera. I could do screen record, but it'll take me time to do all the editing and everything, so hopefully this will work. I backed this project on Kickstarter. Now, with Kickstarter, it's always a risk, but when I did the research on this, and I went in as an early bird, so I was in the first so many days of it, or first so many customers, I went in, and the advantage of STLs, I'm not making much sense. With Kickstarter, there's always a risk. We did a Kickstarter for the other side, and it was a year late, so by the time it came out, me and Andy had kind of lost a bit of enthusiasm for it, and then it came out and we were all, you know, enjoyed it, but because of the delay, it didn't really take off the way it should have done, as we feel, because it is a really good game. But with the STL projects, it's slightly different in that there's no physical project, and a lot of these people, they've already done the models, and they're just trying to raise funds to pay for the time that they've already invested. So this is the video. I'll play the video. Hopefully it'll work okay. I'll make it fill the screen. I say it'll work okay. Here we go. It's like one of those cheap pirate movies, isn't it? So all pre-supported. I'll explain what that means in a minute. Interchangeable parts. So a lot of you will recognise these from the old Tomb Kings days, although legally none of them are Tomb Kings. They've all got similar names, but you get the idea. Always wanted to own some of those for the actual game when it was out many moons ago. But you can see all the favourites are there. The Tomb Cataphracts, Tomb Reapers. Like I say, they've all got interchangeable names with the ones from the game. You can see the Standard Warriors, or Skeleton Warriors I should say, and that's the name of the firm that was doing it. And it was successfully funded, and I think we managed to hit all the goals as well that they had. So this is what I got. Now it was 29 euros, which worked out about 26 quid, 26 pounds. So I'm guessing a euro is roughly worth $1. So in the region of $30. And for $30, you got all this. Now, these are unit fillers, because if you've ever collected a Horde army like Skaven or Tomb Kings, you'll know there's lots of guys, and if you can put these in. The Kickstarter exclusive is this Nomarch. He's like the pharaoh, the leader of the army. Bases for all sizes that you need, both if you intend to use them for AOS or for... Now, I intend to use them for Kings of War and 9th Age. We're looking at getting into those, me and Andy, in a big way for 2021. Whether we'll do any battle reports, I don't know. I suppose it depends on demand. I don't even know if anybody will watch this video anymore. But there you go. We'll see how it goes. So, you know, me and Andy will still be able to play. It's just whether we make videos for them. So you get your skeletons. Now, the skeleton bodies are essentially the same, and you have interchangeable arms. So you can either build them as archers, shield, spearmen, or swordsmen. I'm saying swordsmen and sport. They're skeletons, aren't they? The 3 different weapon choices, and there you go. That's how they're built. And then if we scroll down, you can see the interchangeable parts, some 3D. This is the Colossus, which I would have called a bone giant, but let's call it a Colossus. Again, 3 different weapon options for him. Now, initially I built him with this option, and these just kept breaking off. The resin just isn't strong enough to hold it at that joint, whereas it's more substantial in the others. But I'm sure there's a way around it if you want it to be. That's in without the paint on. These are computer generated models of what they should look like. I'll show you what they've actually looked like in a bit. Shabtis all the way through. So you got your champions in there as well. Again, interchangeable parts, so you can mix and match, make the units look a bit good. This is the Dread Sphinx. Now, you can either build him with these bone wings or without. And I think if you build him without, he's called a Battle Sphinx. And he's got a thing on his back where you can stick your Nomarch to act as like a pharaoh. Keep scrolling down. Sandstalkers. I haven't built these yet. But they are very similar to the next guys who turn up, which are the Tomb Cataphracts, and I have built these, and I'll show you those in a bit. Here we go, whiz through these quite quickly. I'll put the Kickstarter in the actual comments so you can have a look through in details yourself, and then the obligatory Scorpions, which you need to make any Tomb King army complete. Tomb Reapers, which are Ushabti size, or Shabti size, I should say. Keep scrolling down. And then, like I say, you've got the Nomarch again, free for all backers, so he's the bonus one to get you to do. The only one I like of him, really, is probably that pose. He looks a bit weird with his arms. If he's got 2 weapons, the one on the left there, looks a bit weird. I suppose the shield and sword works. And then your bases, which were revealed as they hit various targets. So at 1,000 backers, we had those bases revealed. And then you can see, you can put 1mm magnets straight in there. They're ready for it already. The AOS bases, if you wanted to use those, and you can see how they all come pre-supported. There was a free sample to download, but I didn't bother. Because I wanted the early bird, I went straight in rather than wait it. And I suppose that free model is still there if you want to download him and have a play. I didn't bother with the rest because I don't intend to collect a Wood Elf army at this point. And he's knight. He reminds me of, is it Throt the Unclean who rides the back of the ogre? I get him mixed up on over with someone else. But he reminds me of him and would look good in any army. But again, didn't bother with that. These were more on sharing ability. So if people shared it enough, then they release these as well as Kickstarters, I think. And you can see how you can use them in your army there. So you have to paint less skeletons, in essence, to fill them. It also, and there you go. So it succeeded. I've been very pleased. I went, like I say, for the early bird option, which worked out to round about €30, $30, and it came out at about £26. So I was very pleased with that. And then once that works, you get, I downloaded all the files. I called it the Empire of the Dead because that's how it tunes in to, or Empire of Dust, I think it is. Oh, I don't know. I've called it Empire of the Dead anyway, ETOD. I did that with it. All the files are there, and then if I go into the Colossus or the Bone Giant, you can see how all the files come, and if you do any 3D printing, these files will make sense to you. And then if we open the image, you can see what it should look like there once you've done it. And what it actually looks like in real life when he was all printed and everything is this fella here. So I'm happy with that. Put it in scale. If I put him by the archers, you can see that he's not too bad. I mean, the worst thing about him is my paint job. I've never been the greatest of painters. I paint armies, not necessarily miniatures, and the hobbyist will know what I mean by that. I have done some experimentation with the army, which I'll go into in a bit. But so once I got all those, I then needed some trays. So if I go onto this screen, this guy, Red Star Kits, I think his name there. I'll put a link in the thing underneath. You basically, any Kings of War trays that you need, this guy has kindly put them for, I say for sale, they're all free on Thingiverse. And I'll put the link in there. Now these I've printed off using the Filament Printer, and the miniatures I print off using the Resin Printer. And I'll show you why in a minute. Did I have some pictures of these? No, that's the Colossus. Here we go. There's all the ones that I downloaded for free. Very nice of them to do so. And you've got some really weird and wonderful ones, as you can see here, if I scroll through. Now what I like is the option for these on the back, which if you're playing Kings of War, you can keep your nerve test record or how many wounds you've taken on that. So you can compare it rapidly and it doesn't get mixed up. As you move the tray, it moves with them. So that's the poor filming off the video screens. Like I say, hopefully that's worked okay. Now we'll get into the miniatures. Any of you will know, I say any of you will know, any of you with any experience of resin printing will know, so this was the first machine I showed you, it's very tricky to get square bases. You can see there, might be easier if I turn it over, how it's perpendicular on three sides, but the top side is warped. And that is the case with the pre-supported models, the way they were. So I printed a couple of those out to see what they'd look like, because I could get two on the plate, and both of them warped in the same way. Now these probably cost in the region of 70p each when you print them. It bugs me, stuff like that, especially in a game where it's so important to measure. So I tried doing the supports myself, and you can see that that is square. Ignore this bit in the middle, that's because I saw it had gone wrong and didn't look after it basically. But that is better perpendicular wise than those two. But because I supported it from underneath, you can see the Joe Banana, as we would say, there. You know, it looks like a Viking longship the way it curves up at both ends. And partly I had to do that because these are slightly higher than those. So if you start doing it in a resin printer, basically those don't touch the floor. I could lower it in the base and do it that way, but I've got a new printer and I wanted to experiment. So I used the Filament Printer. And the Filament Printer got it spot on. The only downside is that it does look, if I zoom in, like a relief map, you know, where you get the lines of equal height at sea level on the relief map. So you do get those, which I wasn't keen on. I've been experimenting trying to get rid of those. Oh, and these are 35p each in the cost of filament. So then I have been experimenting more where the one on the left is the base as it is, as it comes out. The base in the middle has textured paint on it, and then the base on the far right has sand and glue applied to it. And I would say I'm as equally unhappy with all of them. I don't think I prefer any. This I would say slightly better, but if I'm going to the trouble of having to texture a base and repaint it several times, apply washers and all that, then why bother? Why not just print a straight base? That I've gone with the base as is, which is this one. You can see if I compare that, because that's printing off at a finer resolution, you could paint that and that would be fine. It's just a shame about the warping. Whereas that, you know, you can see the relief, but do you see it enough to make a difference? That's my point. Because, you know, like I say, my painting isn't the best anyway. So once the cataphracts are on them, I don't think, and now these have only had the first paint. This I did a wash and then highlighted after. And I think it definitely falls into the category of good enough for me. So I don't know yet. If anybody's got any similar ways, I know I could print this out of a different substance from PLA and then apply a chemical thing to smooth it over. But, you know, it gets to the point where it's not worth it. It's ever diminishing returns. And I think this, with the right painting, will be good enough. This will be good enough. That, I think what I'll need to do is water down the wash before doing the painting, and then pick out the detail after. This is just a plain Khemri at the moment. And you can see one of the bases, the trays, and you can see how snug a fit that is, because, you know, you're dealing in 0.2 of a millimetre, something that you'd struggle to do by hand. The actual miniatures, again, like I say, I think that's pretty accurate representation of what they represented in the 3D files. I quite like them. Again, like I say, the thing that lets them down is the painting, but like I say, I paint armies, I don't paint miniatures. I know I paint miniatures, but if the army looks good when they're all together, not necessarily the miniatures when you zoom in. The old phrase used to be tabletop standard, and people know what I mean if I say tabletop standard. So, what's the process? Well, the guys have kindly done them in packs. Now, you can print them out individually, you can have them with support. But this fits on the place nicely, I should say. And you can see how the supports are going up to the models. All of this is resin, so you do have to super glue it together when you do. These supports are fairly easy to break. You can see some of them have been breaking just during the washing process. I will break all the pieces off the supports, then I'll put them in the light box, and which will make the resin finally go hard. You can see at this moment they're still quite flexible, whereas they will go rigid. Once they come from there, I then put them on the filament bases using super glue, and these are, ooh, he knocks them over. These are the figures. Ooh, it's hard watching what you're doing through the camera. So you can see the shiny bits somewhere where I'm putting the glue to put them together. And then once they're all put together and ready, that's when I paint them. Now what I intend to do is put a weak wash over the bases. The extended bits of resin around the feet, I haven't decided whether to cut those off yet or whether just to paint them the same size as the base and then they'll disappear. And for my cannon fodder or chaff, that will be it. I'll probably go through in the same way that I've used the light blue for highlights on the cloth. I might do the same on the miniatures, I'm not sure yet. Definitely on the big guys, because you'll see those. But when I've got to do 200 of these guys, at least, yeah, I reckon it'll be in the region of 200 of these guys by the time I've finished. It won't be worth it. So, there's one of the Kings of War Horde trays that's ready to go. Printed that off. That, I think, took 6 hours to print off, just to give you a time scale. And yeah, that's it. So advantages, well, now I've bought the files, I can print off as many as I like. So I think that bone giant probably cost in the region of about it's a region of £1, I would say, to print off in materials. But, you know, in order to do that, you need the best part of a £200 printer to do it. And you also need to buy the files. So is it cheaper? Well, if you're doing one, no, because your first one costs you 200 quid. No, your first one costs you more than that, probably 260, because you've got to buy your resin, the file, and the thing. But then, you know, your 300th one costs you £1, doesn't it? You know, it's economies of scale. And because I'm doing a whole army, it probably will work out cheaper than buying the models individually, but it's a lot more work. So advantages, I can make as many as I want now, and I can style them. I could even change them in the software if I wanted to. You know, I could do this guy with his arms in the air and all kinds of stuff once I know how to use the software. I could even do that guy with this guy's head if I wanted to in the software. So you've got those advantages. Disadvantages, though, well, it's the time, the process of making. Now, those machines will run all day, and it doesn't bother me, because I'm not sitting there watching them. I start them off, make sure the first layer is fine, and then that's it. That's my job done. Come back when they're finished. I do get more of a sense of achievement out of it, because, you know, they didn't exist, now they do. Because I've printed them out, painted them, and done everything, created them in a way. Everything except the hard bit, drawing the files at the beginning. Yeah, that's where the talent is. Doing this is just following a process. I would be the kind of person who would probably own a 3D printer, even if I wasn't into wargaming, because, you know, engineering degree, I like messing about and fiddling with things, trying to take them apart and put them back together again. So advantages, I find it more satisfying than, you know, blowing £300-400 on an army, because I've got the printer now, you know, my next few armies will cost 30 quid. Probably 60 would be a more accurate representation, because I'd have to buy the files for about 30 quid and then invest in a bottle of resin and filament to print them off. So, you know, 60 quid for an army plus the time is what it will cost me. So that's the advantage. Disadvantage is, well, it takes time, and you're messing with chemicals which aren't the nicest chemicals on earth. Oh, one thing I will say, because I've been putting these together with super glue, I've been using this off Amazon now. That and that, I think, comes in a pack of about 6 or 7 quid. If you do a search for Mitobond, you'll find it. These are more tradesman packages than the hobby glue you get. But what you do then, because it's the same stuff inside there, that's super glue. Thicker than what you would get from Loctite, but it's still super glue nonetheless. So I tend to put that on, say, the torso, and then spray the arm with that, and then when you put them together, it sticks instantly. There's none of this having to wash it first and hold it for half an hour, and then it sticks to your finger rather than the models. Spray one of the components with that, spray, you know, put your glue where you want it, and it sticks as soon as they touch. That has saved me a lot of time. But then again, most of you probably knew that and never thought to say, because it's so obvious. Before I go, I'll mention the Bretonians. Now, I'll put a link to this guy in Kingdom of Mercia pre-supported models, which is interesting because I actually live in the old county of Mercia. Shropshire, Stafford, it's all Mercia. It was funded in less than 15 minutes, but these models are fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I printed the test model on this because he was only a little guy, and it was a faithful representation, so I've got no need to date any of the others, and you can see how good these are. I'll put the link in so you can have a look through yourself what they're doing. They're revealing on key days what's coming through. And, you know, oh, I will murder that when it comes out, when it comes to painting, but I'll do my best. Right, so that's that done. I'll keep the hobby dates coming, folks. Work's been hectic, but, you know, work's been hectic for most people. And anybody with a job at the moment counts themselves lucky, because there's been so many losing their jobs and in fear of losing them. I think we've all had to trim our cloth and look to things that help keep us sane. So hopefully next year will be better than this. And here's to the future. Take care, folks.